Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I am Sir Worldwide. And again, thank you to all my loyal subscribers sticking with Sir Worldwide. We're back here again with History 101 with a historian that's second to none.
Hello, family. How's everybody doing? I don't want to toot my own horn so much, but since I'm on Worldwide's channel, I have to also mention to you that I did fill up one passport all the way. So I have one complete passport filled up with travel. Big shout out to my alma mater, University of Hawaii, my undergraduate alma mater. Just wanted to also mention that, where I have a history degree, and then of course I have a master's degree from New York Film Academy. Okay, so getting right to it, seems like these ridiculous so-called holidays are upon us again, and we'll start with so-called Thanksgiving. Now, we have to first understand that these people that came over here, the so-called Pilgrims, most Caucasian people like to call them settlers. But if you notice, that was already someone else's land. It was a legal entity, tribe of Iroquois nations, which if you look on the back of your dollar bill, you'll see an eagle holding a bunch of arrows. Well, that's where that concept comes from. They had a confederation of tribes that controlled different lands on the eastern seaboard. They came up in the, I believe it was called the Pawtucket tribe, who had mostly been wiped out by some sort of virus or plague before they got there, I will say that. But when they came, the so-called Pilgrims, how could they be settlers when the people coming today in this country, which also has borders, just like their land had borders at the time, are not called settlers, they're called illegal immigrants. I submit to you that the Pilgrims were also illegal immigrants. Howsoever, they had a very difficult time surviving and would not have survived but for the help of people like Squanto, who was one of the braves who was taken in a slave trade to England and made his way back, and that's why he spoke English and could help the Pilgrims out. They would have surely perished without him. They would not have known how to survive in this land. He taught them how to plant the food properly when the fish swam upstream, etc., etc., etc. What happened next? They had a big feast to celebrate that November, their bountiful harvest and so forth, and they invited Chief Natasoy to, and some of his braves to a big feast. Now that's fine. We could say, you know, they're thankful. That's the origin of Thanksgiving. I don't have a real issue with that. But like our native brothers and sisters always said, the white, so-called white man, because he's actually reddish pink. He's not white. But anyway, the so-called white man speaks with a forked tongue, because every time he makes a treaty, he goes against it. And here's a perfect example. He had a nice Thanksgiving feast, and then what did they do? They wiped out the entire tribe. Those people don't even have ancestors on the earth today. They wiped them out, just like the British wiped out everyone in Tasmania. They just wiped them out. And now what you see is all the way up into 1890, from that point, the Battle of Wounded Knee, the end of the so-called Indian Wars, 77 million dead. And this is what you're celebrating when you sit down for this feast. 77 million slaughtered. You wouldn't celebrate a Holocaust that happened in Germany in World War II, but you don't have a problem celebrating this Holocaust. I find that very strange. Another thing that we have to also remember is that the Thanksgiving holiday didn't even become a holiday in the United States of America until 1863. Right during the heart of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln made it a national holiday. Why? To promote patriotism in the Civil War. We call that political expediency. He didn't give a damn about any of this other stuff. However, white people, or Caucasian people I should say, because they're not white, they're red, they have no problem celebrating that genocide because they're thankful. What are they thankful for? That they have this land that they killed 77 million people to get. And our people, who are so-called black and brown, they're gonna go and celebrate that? You're against your own interests. That's the problem, and you shouldn't be celebrating genocide at all. Granted, I know this is a family time and so forth. People don't have to go to work. But remember, before 1863, this happened in what, 1621, if I'm not mistaken, or was it 1620? So to 1863, no one had 4 days off. People didn't gather for these feasts unless they didn't have to work. That's what happened. You just start doing this in 1863, and it's celebrating genocide. It's wrong. It's very wrong. So we shouldn't do it. Next, I'm going to say this without crying. Black people, in particular, so-called black people, Negro people in this land spend $9.8 billion, that's with a B, dollars, every year between so-called Black Friday and Christmas Eve. You don't have your own private schools. You don't have hardly any black banks. You have one or two. I mean, there's a few, a handful of, but you don't have any major black banks to compete with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, who made their money off the slavery, if you go back and research them. You don't have any of that. You don't have a hospital. You don't even own a supermarket. But you feel like you could take $9.8 billion with a B every year and dump it into this madness, which benefits you not, to buy some frivolous gifts that you don't even need. This is mind-blowing. The best gift you can give your child is a supermarket that black folks own. And that would solidify our community. That's what we need, because right now, other nations have stores in our community. They take that money out at the end of every night, back to their community. Nothing's put back in yours, and that's why, in spite of the fact only 9 countries on earth make more money every year than so-called black America, you still own nothing and have nothing because you following these silly cultures. I don't see the Chinese people who run Chinatown, who own all the properties on the side streets, the houses, who own all the commercial businesses on the main streets and own their own banks, their own supermarkets, their own private schools. They have all of these things and their own hospitals. They're not dumping a bunch of money into this crap. They dump money because it's not their culture. Well, guess what? It's not yours either. You didn't celebrate this crap before you were slaves. This was beaten to your head from the slave master, literally beaten to your head. And we need to get back to the culture that we had before this. Lastly, Christmas is the Saturnina holiday. It's a pagan holiday. The one that you call Christ was not born on that day, was born in the spring. Read your Bible. Lastly, his name is not Jesus. The letter J was invented in 1634. 1634, that's 1,600 years, 34 years or so after the birth of the one you call Christ. If you look in the King James Version, 1611, it will say Isos instead of Jesus, or in Latin, which is with a J, Jesus, like Spanish people have that name. It would say Isos because that was no J in the letter in the whole Bible in 1611. All I's where J's were. So let me say this real quick. Isos, Jesus with a J, Isos with an I. Or if you want to go with the Greek, it would be Isos and Jesus. Where did they get that name from? It's not a transliteration. They got Jesus, Isus from Zeus, Z-E-S-U-S, which is the fake Greek god, which was the head of all the fake Greek gods. That's where they got that name from. It is not his name. His name was Hebrew, Yahweh Shai, and that's not his name. And please stop celebrating pagan holidays that have nothing to do. Christianity has got you guys mind boggled, and the commercial practices of a secular society. Save your money, put your money into institutions that's going to benefit your own communities, and stop wasting your money with all this madness, which just benefits you not. It's pretty sad. Come on, people, let's read some books. We wasn't able to read on the plantation. Let's get off the plantation and start studying. All right, not trying to offend anyone, but let's get it together, so-called black people, so we can build strong communities like the Chinese, the Jewish, the whomever else that have strong communities. We could do the same. All right. Always a pleasure, family. Take care.